Imagine standing before a massive, just overflowing audience. It's the year 1893.
Right.
You're far from home, representing an entire hemisphere's spiritual heritage, and you're about to deliver a message so powerful.
So completely unexpected.
Exactly. So unexpected that it will literally rewrite how the Western world views the East. And that is exactly where we are starting today.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to another deep dive here on the Simplified Summary YouTube channel. And hey, if you find value in these deep dives, please take a second to subscribe, like, and share this audio.
Yeah, it really helps.
It genuinely helps the channel grow and lets us bring more great summaries directly to you. So, let's get right into it. Today, we are exploring the complete works of Swami Vivekananda.
Specifically Volume 4, right? The prose writings.
Yes, specifically focusing on his groundbreaking prose, his legendary addresses, and the really deep philosophical frameworks of his teachings. We have this curated collection of sources that includes his famous speeches at the 1893 Parliament of Religions in Chicago, along with his, deep explorations into Vedanta philosophy.
And our mission for this deep dive is to take this massive, honestly incredibly dense volume of Vivekananda's work and distill it down to its most potent, what he called man-making principle.
Man-making principles, yeah.
We want to uncover his core message of radical self-reliance, his absolute rejection of weakness, and explore how understanding this ancient wisdom might just be the ultimate antidote to our modern era of, burnout, anxiety, and constant information overload.
For sure.
And just to be completely clear up front, as we go through this material with you, we are simply exploring the ideas exactly as they are presented in the text. We aren't taking sides or endorsing any specific religious, spiritual, or political viewpoints that might come up.
Yeah, our goal is strictly to unpack the original source material and see what we can learn from it.
Yeah, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
We need to set the historical stage,
right,
because the context of this event is just incredible. It's September 1893. We are at the World's Parliament of Religions in Chicago, which was part of the massive World's Columbian Exposition.
Right, the World's Fair. Yeah, and the sources paint this incredibly vivid picture of the contrast in that room. You have the West, which the text describes as this young, tumultuous, energetic, self-assured sea of mind.
Very industrial.
Right, coming face to face with the calm, ancient, spiritual ocean of the East. And the East is represented on this platform by a yellow-clad monk.
Vivekananda.
Exactly. He steps up to the podium and he delivers this radical opening line to the crowd. He completely skips the formal, stuffy introductions of the day and just says, "Sisters and brothers of America."
What's fascinating here is the immediate explosive impact of that phrasing. I mean, it wasn't just a polite greeting.
No, not
It was a philosophical statement. He was stepping onto a stage where everyone else was essentially representing a specific bounded creed or church or sect.
They were there to pitch their specific slice of truth.
Exactly. And by addressing a foreign audience of thousands as family, he immediately dissolves those boundaries. He is laying the groundwork for his entire analysis of sectarianism and bigotry. The text points out his belief that sectarianism, bigotry, and fanaticism have drenched the earth in blood and set whole nations to despair.
It's heavy stuff.
It is. He steps into this very modern industrial Western city to essentially say, we have historically failed by putting up walls, and we have to move past this.
Yeah.
And to explain why human beings struggle with this so much, he brings up a brilliant little story.
Oh, right, the anecdote of the frog in the well.
Yes.
I want to walk through this because it's such a perfect metaphor. So the text describes a little frog who has lived its entire life at the bottom of a well.
Just a tiny well.
Right. It's born there, raised there, and it logically thinks this well is the entire universe. It cleans the water, eats the worms, gets a little fat and sleek, and is perfectly content in its reality.
Ignorance is bliss.
Totally. Then one day, another frog who happens to live in the ocean accidentally falls into this well. The well frog asks, "Where are you from?"
And the sea frog says, I am from the sea.
Exactly. So the well frog, naturally skeptical of anything outside its experience, takes a little leap across his well and asks, "Is your sea as big as my well?"
The sea frog basically laughs.
Right. He says it's nonsense to compare the vast ocean to a tiny well. So the well frog takes another bigger leap, hits the other wall, and decides, "Nothing can be bigger than my well. This fellow is a liar. Turn him out."
Turn him out. It's a profound analogy for the human condition. When you read this text, you realize Vivekananda is using this to diagnose how different religions, or really any isolated human groups, operate.
Yeah, they sit in their own little wells thinking it constitutes the whole world.
The Hindu sits in his well, the Christian in his, the Muslim in his, but the crucial point he makes to that audience is about the true nature of his faith. He asserts that Hinduism does not merely tolerate other religions.
Wait, I want to pause on that word.
Okay.
Why the distinction? Because in modern times, we hold up tolerance as the ultimate world standard of a civilized society.
It's a great question, and the text addresses this directly. In this philosophical framework, tolerance is actually seen as somewhat condescending.
Really?
Think about it. Tolerance implies putting up with something you secretly believe is fundamentally wrong or inferior.
Oh, right. Like you tolerate a bad smell or you tolerate a loud neighbor.
Exactly. The text argues that the ancient Indian philosophy doesn't tolerate, it unites. It views humanity not as wandering in the dark, traveling from error to truth, but rather as climbing up from truth to truth.
From a lower truth to a higher truth.
Yes. Every single step on that staircase, even the lowest one, is still made of truth.
That concept completely shifts the paradigm. I mean, if you genuinely believe everyone is moving from truth to truth, there's absolutely no reason to condemn the person on the step below you.
Or the step next to you.
Right. It takes all the hostility out of the equation. But to really understand this unity, the sources require us to look at how Vivekananda redefines the soul and the nature of creation itself.
And this gets a bit heavy.
It does. The text explains that the Vedas, the ancient Indian scriptures, aren't viewed merely as physical books with a beginning and an end. They are viewed as an accumulated treasury of spiritual laws.
Let's break that down, because it's a very different way of looking at Scripture.
Yeah.
He compares it to the laws of physics.
Okay.
The law of gravity existed long before Isaac Newton was born to discover it, and it will exist long after humanity is gone. The text argues that the spiritual world operates on similar eternal laws.
So the relationships between souls and between individual souls and the ultimate reality have always existed.
Exactly. The sages or prophets didn't invent these laws, they simply discovered them.
And that leads right into a cosmological argument that honestly made me stop and reread the page a few times.
The creation argument.
Yeah, the text asserts that creation itself is without beginning or end. Because, as the argument goes, if creation had a specific starting point, it would mean that God or the creator was sometimes potentially like resting or inactive and then suddenly became active.
Right. And the philosophical problem there, according to this framework, is that if a creator goes from inactive to active, that creator is mutable.
It is subject to change.
Yes. And in Vedantic philosophy, anything that is a compound and undergoes change is strictly bound by time and space, and is therefore eventually subject to destruction.
Right, so to say God changes or has phases is absurd in this philosophical framework.
Exactly.
Therefore, creation and the creator are like two parallel lines running forever. But here's where it gets really interesting. Because creation is endless and the soul is endless, Vivekananda completely rejects the concept of original sin.
He does.
He stood in front of this 19th century Western audience, an audience deeply steeped in the concept of humanity being inherently flawed, and he says, "Hear, you children of immortal bliss."
It's a bold statement.
He actually states that calling a human being a sinner is a sin in itself. He calls it a standing libel on human nature.
He is incredibly forceful about this. He uses this unforgettable imagery to drive the point home. He tells the audience, "Come up, O lions, and shake off the delusion that you are sheep."
I need to ask you about the underlying philosophy there because it sounds incredibly empowering, but what is the actual mechanism? How does one go from a sheep to a lion in this worldview?
It comes down to a concept called Advaita, which translates roughly to non-dualism or spiritual monism.
Okay.
Simply put, it's the idea that there is no fundamental separation between you and the ultimate reality of the universe. To explain it like you're five, imagine the ocean.
Got it.
You might see thousands of different waves, big ones, small ones, frothy ones. Advaita says we spend all our time thinking we are the individual wave, completely separate from the other waves.
But in reality, every wave is just water.
It's all the ocean. The text refers to this true, underlying, infinite self as the Atman.
Okay, but if I am the ocean, if I'm a child of immortal bliss, that completely changes my relationship with consequence. Well, if I'm not a fallen sinner waiting for salvation, who is responsible when things go wrong?
That is the monumental so what of this philosophy. It throws absolutely all responsibility onto you as an individual.
All of it.
All of it. There is no external devil to blame for your misery. You can't say, the devil made me do it. And perhaps more shockingly for some listeners in 1893, there is no personal God sitting in the clouds to carry your burdens for you or fix your mistakes.
You are entirely responsible for your fate.
The text explicitly states that you are the bringer of good unto yourself, and you are the bringer of evil.
Wait, I have to push back on that. Doesn't that sound incredibly isolating?
It can, yeah.
I mean, to an audience in 1893, and honestly, to people today, the idea of a savior, of someone or something else taking the wheel, is a massive source of comfort. Saying it's all on you sounds like a recipe for a panic attack.
It absolutely can sound terrifying at first. But the text argues that this absolute responsibility is the only path to true liberation and fearlessness.
How does that work?
Well, if someone else gives you your power, someone else can take it away.
Mm-hmm.
If your power is inherent, if you are the Atman, it can never be lost.
Ah, I see.
The text argues that recognizing this infinite nature makes you untouchable by the anxieties of the world. If you realize you are not merely your physical body, but the eternal soul, then, as the text explicitly says, the sword cannot pierce you, the fire cannot burn you, the water cannot melt you. You are unbounded.
Okay, I can grasp that intellectually, but actually living it on a day-to-day basis is a completely different story.
Right.
How does someone who has a mortgage, an annoying boss, and a noisy neighborhood actually practice being an infinite soul?
That is exactly where the text transitions from theory to practice. Vivekananda knew that humanity isn't a monolith. We all have different temperaments, different psychological makeups.
Mm-hmm.
So the text outlines how this ancient philosophy breaks human nature down into four main types and offers a specific path, or yoga, for each one.
Let's walk through those briefly so we understand the menu of options here.
Sure. First, you have the emotional, feeling-oriented person. Their path is Bhakti yoga, the path of devotion and love.
Okay.
Then you have the mystic, the person who wants to analyze the inner workings of their own mind. Their path is Raja yoga, the path of meditation and mental control.
Got it.
Third, you have the highly analytical philosopher who wants to use pure intellect and reason to pierce through illusions. Their path is Jnana yoga.
And the fourth?
Finally, you have the active person, the doer, the person who constantly needs to be engaged with the world. Their path is karma yoga. And the ultimate goal the text suggests is actually a harmonious balance of all four.
I want to really zero in on karma yoga because the sources emphasize it so heavily as the most practical path for the modern, everyday person.
It really is.
Karma yoga is essentially the secret of work. The core concept here is that you must work like a master, not like a slave. You do good for the sake of doing good without any attachment to the fruits of your labor, without looking for praise, reward, or even gratitude.
Which is completely counter to how modern society operates, right?
Totally.
We are conditioned to work entirely for the reward. You study to get the grade, you work overtime to get the promotion or the boss's validation, you post online to get the like.
Exactly. We are obsessed with the outcome. And the text argues that this obsession with the outcome is exactly what causes our misery and burnout. Because the moment you attach your happiness to the outcome, you become a slave to it.
Yes.
If the boss doesn't notice your hard work, you're devastated. But there's this fantastic anecdote in the sources that illustrates the alternative. It's the story of a man called the Vyada.
The butcher who refused to be a formal teacher.
Yes. People would seek out this incredibly wise man, asking him profound spiritual questions. And he wouldn't sit them down and give a pretentious lecture.
He felt it was too much of an ego trip to set himself up as a guru.
Instead, he taught the ultimate secret of work through his everyday mundane actions. He taught the concept of joining the end and the means into one. He didn't look at his daily duties as an annoying stepping stone to a better life.
He did his everyday chores as the highest form of worship.
Exactly. He poured his whole life, his entire infinite self, into the present moment.
And we connect this to the bigger picture. It ties perfectly into how the text views our overall duty to the world. It's a very counterintuitive perspective.
Oh, so?
We usually think of philanthropy or helping others as us bestowing a great gift upon the world. But the text says we are actually debtors to the world. It is a privilege to be allowed to do anything for it. Vivekananda describes the world as a grand moral gymnasium.
A grand moral gymnasium. Let's unpack that analogy because it feels very applicable to everyday struggles.
Think about what you do in a gymnasium. You lift heavy weights. You push against resistance. You sweat.
Right.
The weights aren't there to punish you. They are there to provide the resistance necessary for your muscles to grow. The text suggests the world is exactly the same. The difficulties, the annoying coworkers, the societal challenges they have, the weights in the gymnasium. We are there taking exercise to become spiritually stronger.
But the text takes it a step further and points out a really hard truth. It claims we cannot actually help the universe.
Right. And again, this challenges the ego. Why can't we save the world? Because, according to this philosophy, The universe isn't drifting aimlessly.
The underlying reality, the divine order, is already everywhere, eternally active.
Yes, the sun shines, the rivers flow, the seasons change. We don't make any of that happen. So when we do good works, when we help a neighbor or fight for a cause, we aren't saving the world in some ultimate cosmic sense.
We are only helping ourselves.
Exactly. We are participating in the gymnasium. We are breaking our own chains of selfishness and expanding our awareness.
Which brings us to perhaps the most striking theme in all of these sources, Vivekananda's absolute uncompromising rejection of weakness.
Oh, it practically leaps off the page.
She has this intense, almost visceral disdain for anything that weakens the human mind. He says, and I'm quoting directly here, "What our country now wants are muscles of iron and nerves of steel, gigantic wills which nothing can resist." He sees weakness, not sin, as the root of all human misery.
He does, and he is very specific about the types of things that breed this weakness. He warns very strongly against what he calls mystery-mongering, secret societies, and superstitions.
He sees them as toxic.
Yes, the text argues that these are signs of degradation and spiritual death.
But why is he so against mystery? Isn't a lot of spirituality rooted in the mystical and the hidden?
Not in his view of Vedanta. He argues that if someone tells you they have a secret spiritual truth that only an elite few can know, or if a practice requires sleight-of-hand tricks and blind faith without reason, you should run the other way.
That makes sense.
Truth, by its very nature, must be strengthening. It must be able to withstand the light of day, it must be pure, and it must be simple. If a belief, a dogma, or a practice makes you physically, intellectually, or spiritually weak, he says you should reject it as poison, no matter how ancient or sacred it claims to be.
To illustrate what true, unadulterated strength looks like, the text shares this amazing historical anecdote about Alexander the Great.
I love this story.
It's essentially a clash of two completely different versions of power. Alexander has crossed into India, conquering everything in his path. He is in a forest where he meets a sannyasin, a monk, sitting naked on a block of stone.
And Alexander's intrigued.
Yeah, the emperor of the world is amazed by this man's wisdom and tempts him with gold and immense honor if the monk will just come back to Greece with him. The monk just smiles at the gold and refuses.
And Alexander, who is used to every single person bowing to his will, does what conquerors do.
He pulls rank and uses fear. He threatens him. He essentially says, "I am the most powerful man on earth. I will kill you if you do not come." And the monk, this man with zero material possessions sitting on a rock, looks at the conqueror of the world and busts out laughing.
It's a great image.
He says, "You never told such a falsehood in your life. Who can kill me? Me you kill, emperor of the material world. Never. For I am spirit, unborn and undecaying." He essentially calls Alexander a child for even thinking a physical sword could destroy the infinite soul.
This raises an important question for anyone reading this today. What does it actually mean to live with that level of fearlessness? The text points out that in these ancient scriptures, there is a specific word used again and again, avhi, which translates to fearless.
Avi.
The text claims this is the only religious scripture in the world where this adjective is primarily and repeatedly applied to man, urging him to stand up and be fearless. Not to cower in guilt, not to weep over past mistakes, but to realize his own indestructible nature.
So what does this all mean for us? How do you take this incredibly lofty ancient philosophy from a monk in 1893 and apply it to a stressful Tuesday morning commute, or an overwhelming inbox, or just the general anxiety of the 24-hour news cycle?
It's the ultimate question.
Well, it comes back to what you fundamentally believe about yourself. As Vivekananda says in the text, if you think yourself strong, strong you will be. This isn't just positive thinking. It's a man-making education designed for your daily struggles.
Yes.
When you are feeling completely overwhelmed by your job or your responsibilities, when you feel like the gymnasium of the world is just beating you down, the text asks you to change your perspective. It asks you to remember that you are not a tiny, fragile boat tossed around in a tempest. You are not a powerless wreck at the mercy of cause and effect.
You are the children of immortal bliss.
You are the lion, not the sheep. We want to humbly thank you for joining us on this deep dive here on the Simplified Summary channel. If this shift in perspective resonated with you today, please give this video a like, share it with someone who might need to hear it, and hit subscribe so we can keep bringing these powerful ideas straight to you.
As we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, drawing directly from a different part of the source text we haven't touched on yet. Vivekananda argues that all knowledge, secular or spiritual, is not something we acquire from the outside. He says the infinite library of the universe is actually already inside your own mind. He describes learning not as adding something to your brain, but simply taking the cover off your own soul. The perfection is already there. You just have to manifest it.
Wow.
If that is true, if you already possess the infinite library within you, what is one problem you are facing right now that you are trying to solve by looking outward, when the answer might just require you to sit quietly, trust your own infinite nature, and simply take the cover off?